Solana has Jupiter, Ethereum has Uniswap, and now XRP has this DEX. In this video, you'll learn everything about the presale and the new DEX that runs on the XRP Ledger. Why this could really be an exciting development, and beyond that you'll of course also find out how I see the medium and long-term forecast for XRP. Definitely stay tuned until the end of the video because I believe this video could truly be worth its weight in gold for you. Have fun and let's go! I don't think we really need to talk much about XRP as a project. Of course, opinions are somewhat divided. There are people who say, well, it's a kind of love-hate relationship. Maybe XRP hasn't quite developed the way people thought it could. But there are also others who still believe that the XRP price can rise above $100 and so on. What will actually happen, of course, remains to be seen. But why did all the hype around XRP arise in the first place? On the one hand, it has to be said that the whole crypto business is extremely fast moving and there are coins that spring up out of nowhere and disappear just as quickly as they appeared. But ever since altcoins have existed, XRP has always managed to be among the top 3 coins most of the time, or at the very least, it has always been among the top 10 coins. That means it's an extremely stable project and above all, unlike other projects, take Solana with its DEX Jupiter, for example, XRP, in the more than 10 years since this protocol has been online, has not crashed even once or experienced any disruptions. And that speaks to a very, very high level of sustainability. And you can judge all of this very well on the chart, follow it. And above all, you can also see quite quickly that the project still has an incredible amount of upward potential. If we just look at CoinMarketCap to see how the community rates the project, you can see that 88% of all survey participants are bullish on XRP and believe that XRP can experience further price increases. And you can also see the potential here by looking at the chart. The coin once started at a price of not even $1 cent. In fact, just half a US cent managed to skyrocket all the way up to a price of over $3.36. Then we had a bit of a weak phase during the last bull run where XRP didn't perform as well, but that was partly due to the lawsuit, among other things. But that problem has now been resolved, and you can see here as well that XRP has surged explosively again. And the journey of XRP is far from over. And you can also see this quite clearly in the market capitalization, because despite the fact that XRP was a bit weak at the beginning of the bull run, and many people thought XRP wouldn't amount to anything, some even sold it, is currently in 4th place according to market cap, with a volume of nearly $127 billion. Of course, all of this can't be compared to Bitcoin, but the hype around XRP is still almost as strong as it is with Bitcoin. I already mentioned that at the beginning. You have to consider that in 10th place right now is Cardano, also a major project, currently with a market cap of about $21 billion. That means up to 10th place, XRP's market cap is 6 times larger. And that is, of course, an incredible amount of power and speaks for this project alone, but naturally also for the DEX, which we will talk about in just a moment. I promised you that I would give you a brief insight into how I see the forecast for XRP, and that's what we'll do now. The bear market low for XRP was around 28.6 cents, and at first there was only a very sluggish increase, which then dropped off again somewhat. But in the end, as I mentioned at the beginning, XRP managed to make an impulsive move upward, which rose from about 37-38 cents all the way up to just below the all-time high at $4.42. I interpret the whole thing as us having completed a wave 1 here. Then we corrected into a wave 2 in October 24. After that came this strong surge, At the same time, the SEC lawsuit against XRP was dismissed, and Trump made very bullish statements about American coins, which is still a topic of discussion. And since then, XRP has held up incredibly well since the completion of this wave 3 and has now corrected into wave 4, where we have a target between $1.90 and $1.19 at the lower end. This means that only if we were to fall below $1.19 here, would we need to consider whether XRP might still not be able to make an entry, but such a sell-off would have to happen very dynamically. And as you can see here, XRP is really holding up very, very well above this trend reversal area, and that's why my preferred approach is still that we are at least one wave degree short to the upside, which will in all likelihood take place above the all-time high. As you can see here in the count box, it could also be that we stay below it. I consider that possible, but not very likely. If we do manage to break the all-time high, that could trigger an entirely new dynamic for XRP, and then prices could conservatively reach as high as $5.30. But of course, there's potentially much more possible, because often an all-time high can really give a coin another big push. As things stand, from the current price level up to the upper limit, you could still make 150% with XRP. But of course, there are no limits, and the price could even go a bit higher. For the sake of completeness, let's look at the lower end. That means if we stay below the all-time high, there would still be a potential return of about 60%. Now let's move on to the pre-sale introduction of DeXRP, which is the decentralized exchange running on the XRP Ledger. One advantage, for example, is that the XRP Ledger is particularly well suited for transactions and was developed specifically for that purpose. And that's already a really great combination to say we're building our DEX on a ledger that was primarily designed for this purpose. Then there's something else. If you look at other major DEXs, for example, on Solana, there's now Jupiter. How often has Solana crashed recently? Constantly. You keep hearing Solana is offline again. The question everyone has to ask themselves is it really good and sensible to have a DEX where you want to trade, but it's currently offline, you can't trade, you have no access? Then we could also look at Uniswap on Ethereum. The problem there, again, is that Ethereum has extremely high gas fees, whereas on the XRP Ledger, they are extremely low. But now, let's take a closer look at the advantages together. On the one hand, we have a very, very fast transaction speed because trades are completed within just a few seconds, whereas elsewhere it can sometimes take several minutes. Then we have a very efficient design when it comes to fees. This means that you pay only extremely low fees for transactions, which can be much higher with competitors. Then there is also a dual trading mode. This means that swaps that is exchanging individual coins happen much faster, or that you also have better control over the order books. Additionally, there are advanced order types. This means you have access to many charts and comprehensive market data, so you're always up to date and can extract even more information that you need or find useful for your trades and actions. And finally, there is also intelligent liquidity routing. This can also have many advantages because it simply ensures that you always get the best price. Who is this all for? Basically, it's for everyone. On the one hand, for professional traders, I think it can definitely play a role there due to low fees. That adds up over time, and of course, thanks to the fast transaction completions, sometimes seconds can make all the difference. But it's also interesting for individual traders, meaning private consumers, because this decentralized exchange, this DeXRP, can really be appealing, especially since other decentralized exchanges are also widely used. Because this DEX is built on the XRP Ledger, there are various advantages, some of which I've already mentioned. For example, the fast transaction processing, but also a high level of security on the XRP Ledger, because as I said, there haven't been any outages, hacks, or anything like that in the past. Then you have very good transaction processing, and of course also a decentralized on-ledger exchange for maximum transparency. So there are also a huge number of advantages. If you want to take a closer look at all of this before we move on to the tokenomics, or if you might want to participate in the pre-sale, there's a link down in the video description. You're welcome to click on it and check everything out for yourself. The white paper is also included there, and as mentioned, you can of course also participate in the pre-sale, because at the moment the purchase price is still extremely low, but we'll take a closer look at that in a moment. The tokenomics are as follows. We have 2 billion coins that are planned to be put into circulation. Of these, 25% are intended for public sale and 15% for liquidity provision. There will also be staking and rewards. That means you also have the big advantage that you can stake everything as well. Then 10% is allocated for the ecosystem and partnerships, and for the team and advisors, who of course also need to be paid, another 10% is set aside, and 12% for marketing and community. Then we have reserves and treasury at 9%, and there's also an innovation fund which receives another 12%. And then there are airdrops and bounty programs for which another 3% of the tokens are allocated. Basically, you have everything you need on the DEX. You have a real-time analytics dashboard, a dual trading system, ultra-fast settlements, dynamic fee control, and advanced order types such as limit, stop, and loss. That means you simply get precise execution. Then there's intelligent liquidity routing, and of course regulatory compliant transparency. Finally, let's take another quick look at this pre-sale. The listing price is expected to be 35 cents at launch. Okay, it has to be said that with many projects, when they get listed, the price often drops sharply at first and doesn't continue to rise sustainably right away. We can be honest about that. That's the case most of the time. But right now, for the next few hours, we still have a price of $0.068. That means it's a fraction of the issue price that we will eventually have. This means you could achieve 57 times your investment, and even if it were only 20 times, just as an example, because you might not be able to sell it right away then, well, it would just be a bit less. But I think that's a good risk-reward ratio to maybe get involved here. And what you also have to consider is that since the whole thing is built on the XRP Ledger and XRP has such a strong appeal, if XRP continues to rise in price, it tends to pull the other coins up with it. Maybe some of you know XRPH, which is XRP Healthcare. That's also a smaller project in the medical field that's built on XRP. I had invested in that, and during the time when XRP had its surge, which I showed you earlier on the chart, and right now this little coin has just shot up 12 times because it's connected to XRP and simply went through the roof along with it. Does it have to happen like this here? No, it doesn't have to happen like this, but there are just good opportunities here that you might want to take advantage of. So personally, I'm going to invest a small amount here and just see what comes of it. Because maybe I'll be one of those who are there for the big moments. Maybe you will be too, and will be able to buy the first tokens that come onto the market or are released at an unbeatable price and enjoy that in the long term. Even if we just briefly take a look at X to wrap things up, DeXRP has only been on X since May of this year. But despite that, it already has nearly 22,000 followers. So that means a nice community has formed in a very short time, which is also good for sustainably rising prices. If you're interested in getting involved here and want to look everything over again, the link is down in the video description. If you decide to use my referral link to make a purchase here, I would of course be happy about that, obviously. And for anyone interested in analyses like the one I did on XRP at the beginning of the video and who would like to have regular analyses like that, you're welcome to get in touch with me either in the Telegram group or just check out the Patreon link below. There you'll find even more information, or you can also check it out through the YouTube membership. If you like the way I present content, or if you just think, hey, this is a great channel, then feel free to subscribe. Leave me a thumbs up, Let me know in the comments what you think about the project, and I'd be happy if we see each other again in another video. Now I wish you a great day, have a wonderful time, see you in the next video, and bye.